Well, I want to dispel some of the myths. I want to dispel some of the myths about healing with microelectricity. It's actually semi-ain't old concept in some ways because sometimes there are instances of it being used before in the 1900s and the 1800s when electricity was first discovered. A lot of it today is generally regarded as quackery, but I want to actually, well, I'm going to state right now from the get-go, my personal belief is, and it's not really a belief, I think it's more like based upon, true facts, is that microelectricity will be the future of medicine sometime, maybe in the distant future, because medicine's a very conventional type of practice. They don't change too quickly. But I think sometime in the future, the medicine of the future is going to look back at pharmaceutical medicines and chemical medicines as almost like we look back at medieval medicines today. It's going to look antiquated, and it's not going to seem, enlightened in any way. Now, I want to get on with Dr. Robert Beck, excuse me, also known as Bob Beck, and I'm not sick, I just coughed there a little bit. He came out with this protocol called the Beck Protocol. Now, I want to address this where there's like almost two extreme viewpoints. It's almost like there's people that say it's a totally suppressed medical cure. There's people that believe this. It's 100% cure for all kinds of stuff, and that's suppressed by the medical establishment. That's one side of viewpoints. And the other side of viewpoints are it's total quackery, the whole thing's a fraud, and it's just nonsense. Well, actually, I'm going to state that I think the truth is actually in between there someplace. It does have benefits. Now, I'm also going to put out a precaution because one of the things that people that are proponents of the Beck Protocol that are really way into it, they believe it's the best thing in the world. I think it's a very smart thing, money wise. I'll put it that way because once you buy the equipment, it's pretty cool. But the big proponents of the Beck Protocol, they will state that it can cure cancer, it can cure AIDS, it can cure HIV, but the medical establishment stops you from using it. Well, that's not true, really. It's not really true. Actually, if you look back at the testimonials of people, because it's been out now for some time, it's been out since the 90s, it's been out for, 20 years, right, the Beck Protocol. The testimonials aren't scientific evidence, but you really can't ignore them because they build up after a number of years. Not every single person, but a lot of people say the Beck Protocol makes them feel better, after using it a while. They say it makes them feel like they have more energy. So one of the things that he really seems to work with is chronic fatigue syndrome, whatever that is, because there's a lot of different reasons that could happen. And they say it helps with symptoms. Like if somebody has, one of the things when, actually this protocol, I'll give you a little history, one of the real backbone of the protocol was the blood electrification. Now, I'm actually wearing a device right now. This is a device I have on each wrist, but I'll get into that. I have other videos on it if you want to know details about it. But I'm going to actually tell you where I think this is beneficial, but also caution you not to rely on the Beck Protocol and forego conventional medical treatment. In other words, if you have a serious problem with HIV or cancer or leukemia or something like life-threatening, go see your doctor. I mean, these guys aren't, I think sometimes the medical practices are like extremely costly because there's very high salaries involved that they need to recoup the money on through these pills after they get them patented, with all the research and development that was involved. But, you're not going to be able to conquer some of the major diseases out there with this Beck Protocol like the proponents say. Now, I'm going to get into this actual protocol started more in fighting in the early years of fighting AIDS. Now, Dr. Beck himself, who's a PhD, not an MD, he says, and I believe what he says, he was actually terminally ill with cancer in a wheelchair, and when he developed this thing, this 4-part protocol, basically he used the blood electrification, it cured him. That's what he says. Okay? But that's one case. That's one case. I don't know, he could have got cured by God or something else. I don't know. But it made him believe that, he was onto something. Now, I want to also point out the guy was highly intelligent. If you look back on his videos, I think people understand that. Actually, this I'm going to point to a link on a PDF document I found that gives you a little more detail about Dr. Bob Beck in his personal life, kind of how he was. Actually, in it showed that one of his IQ tests was 180. So genius is at 140. This guy was not a dumb person. And also, when he was talking about these microelectrical devices, he was not selling them. So I always, said, there must be something to this, because I can't see how he's making money off of this, so why is he sticking his neck out? I think he just believed that he cured himself, in his mind. He believed he cured himself of cancer by using the blood electrification. So he wanted to tell the world. But, as it turns out, a lot of times people who use these devices, not everybody, but a lot of people tend to think it works. They feel better, they have more energy. Now, I'm going to say this. From my own experiences, that if I use a lot of blood electrification, because I've been doing this a couple of years, I don't think it does any harm at all. I'm using a wrist-to-wrist method or whatever right now. I've noticed if I do it a lot, this is my personal subjective thing, but I'm trying to be very objective about it, I have more energy. I don't know why that is, though. There's other people that say that same thing. But I wanted to test it, and I swear, I think I have more energy from it. Now, Dr. Beck, PhD, not an MD, in the early days of AIDS, he tried to help AIDS patients in any way that he possibly could. He thought his devices were 100% effective. And I'm going to kind of paraphrase some of this article, because this really gets at the meat after the controversy. Did he cure people of AIDS or not? Did he? Did he do something special? It looks like the answer is not, but it was a mistake. And an honest mistake, and possibly, the guy's a very, very bright individual. He developed many, many things. He had 180 IQ. Possibly his ego got in the way of a couple things too, some of his conclusions. You remember, this is one person. And his assertion that the medical establishment is highly money driven, oh, that's true. I mean, if you came out with something that was dirt cheap and you're just going to put them out of business, they would not like that. But then again, it's also true that the truth would come out eventually. So why did not the truth come out? Because the truth is, this device cannot cure AIDS, HIV, and I'm not sure about cancer, because somehow there's one example, Bob Beck himself. That's why he believed. That's another reason he believed in it. But I would not trust it to can't cure cancer. But I want to put this out to you. You can use both, and there's a way to do both. I want to get into that, but this is probably where Bob Beck made a mistake about the AIDS patients, because what he did in the early years of electro-medical medicine research, he funded a study with two medical doctors, true MDs, and 8 AIDS patients. 8, okay, Ocho. Bob had hoped to publish the results of this study because, according to Bob Beck, all 8 patients became symptom-free. Now, a lot of people that have HIV, AIDS, or various other problems, when they do the Beck Protocol, they do seem to get symptom-free. Like, I can't ignore that this thing is not doing something, but it's not strong enough to really conquer these really bad diseases that have been eluding treatments and cures of the best medical establishment for years. but it seems to help with symptoms. The established medical system, however, required that the PCR, that's poly-chain reaction, I forgot the name for that. It's a test show that each individual is no longer HIV positive. Now, this led to confusion because the invention and the eventual abandonment of the study, as the PCR tests still were positive in most cases. Now, what's interesting is Beck used the PCR test to determine if the person had HIV/AIDS in the first place. That's not a good test to determine if a person has HIV/AIDS in the first place. That's a test used later to determine how much of the virus exists in the blood. What you use is the ELISA test to test for antibodies with a confirmation of the Western blot test. That confirms that the person has HIV virus, and then the PCR test will tell you how much of the virus is present in the body. If you try to use this as a test to confirm a person has HIV/AIDS from the get-go, you can get false positives from the PCR test. Not the standard ELISA test. That thing is like 99% accurate. So, when he did have a few of these people that went from positive to negative, he was talking about the PCR test. And that could have been a false positive. And they probably had these symptoms of AIDS or whatever the hell it is, they felt like this or whatever, they felt tired, they had various problems, they had like colds, they had problems or whatever it is. They probably had these symptoms and the symptoms disappeared. Actually, when you use this Beck Protocol, a lot of times the symptoms do disappear, but the numbers that you need to effectively conquer HIV are not there. In other words, the numbers that are important especially are the immune cell numbers, like they call them CD4 cells or T cells. I think they call them T cells because they're like traffic controller cells. Maybe that's the reason. But those are very important to direct the immune system as to, what to do to fight off infections. So what happens is that the HIV penetrates the T cells and uses them as factories to make more HIV, and then the cell gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it blows up and all the HIV goes out into the body again. The microelectricity, per the patent done by the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in 1991 and 92 by doctors Kiley and Lyman, there's a few other doctors, said that the HIV virus, when exposed to this electrical current, will basically, it'll disrupt the outer protein wall of the HIV virus so that it can no longer penetrate healthy cells, the T cells, and destroy them. That's the theory. But it looks like, in practice, it's not strong enough. But it looks like the microelectricity is indeed helping with more minor things in the body. I'm going to put this out here because I don't want to make a claim, but it's like there's too many people that say it helps with basically the symptoms. And the symptoms are due to the colds and all these different other bugs that come about due to the suppressed immune system. That's what I'm making. I think this thing actually has a merit. And if you look back at all the testimonials over the last 20 years, it looks like it has some merit. But will it conquer HIV and cancer? No, it can't. It doesn't look like that. I don't think there's anything out there that says it can totally conquer it. And the other thing is, it basically has come to light that the PCR test, as I pointed out, is not a valid test for HIV. Now, at that time, in the early 90s, when these studies were produced, there was people out there saying that HIV did not cause AIDS. Or HIV was a harmless retrovirus or something like that. Well, it's not a harmless retrovirus. And one of the proponents of that actually mentioned here was this Christine McGuire, who wrote the book, What If Everything You Thought You Knew About AIDS Was Wrong? And actually, she died when at the age of 52, unfortunately. So that was a wrong thesis. Now, I want to present this. See, this big conflict between doing the Beck Protocol and conventional medicine is this. If you look at Dr. Beck's videos when he's in Granada or Ventura College in California, whatever it is, there's a couple videos out there on Google and on YouTube. He states that you stop all medications and you do the Beck Protocol. And the reason, now I'm going to say there's a way around this. He says the reason you do that is because of this thing called blood transfection, or your blood becomes very temporarily more absorbent to pharmaceutical meds. Garlic is like an herb like garlic, which would be dangerous if it's like the effects of it are multiplied many times over. So he says not to take any like pharmaceutical meds while you do the protocol. And that is because the device he developed is set on a 4 hertz setting, which is it goes positive, negative 4 times a second. Now, you can actually, there's one device out there. I use this device all the time because actually I use it at 10 hertz, 4 hertz, 40. I use it at all the different settings. But if you actually set the device, if you have a Beck device, Beck blood electrifier, and you use the 40 hertz setting, you don't have the problem with overabsorption of prescription meds or herbs or garlic even when you're using the device at 40 hertz. So in fact, you could do the blood electrification at the same time you're undergoing conventional medical treatment. Like say you're undergoing conventional medical treatment for AIDS, HIV, cancer, leukemia, Hep C, or whatever. You could still do the blood electrification if you use the device that's the Beck designed blood electrification device set on 40 hertz versus 4 hertz. So the two can coexist together. Now, like I said, I think it's my personal opinion, but I'm not just basing this upon, grabbing something out of the air. It's because the weight of all these testimonials over the last 20 years that the device has helped people feel better, have more energy, less symptoms. Somehow this thing is doing something. But is it a cure for cancer and HIV and things that are like very, very tough for the conventional medicine to actually treat? No, it is not. No, it is not. Now, there may be a way to make the blood electrification device more effective in how you use it. Now, Bob Beck, making it more convenient for people, he said to use the electrodes on the same wrist on the 2 arteries. That would still get all the blood in the body. The body would pass all the blood. Now, a lot of times I've used it wrist to wrist, which goes through here. He didn't do that because, well, if you have a pacemaker, you probably don't want to put any kind of even minor electricity through your body. But I think he was afraid of being attacked by the conventional, medical establishment for putting this information out there. I could say this. I've been doing this wrist-to-wrist thing, blood electrification, and, I have the device on right now, and doing it while I was doing cardio for over 2 years. And I have not seen any problem with it. As a matter of fact, this is set, when this red light is on, you can see, like and I show this on other videos, if I disconnect this, the red light is off, and when I connect this again, the red light is on. That means there's electricity going from one wrist to the other wrist. But it is so low that I don't feel it. But it's a specific current that was developed in the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. It was originally for HIV, but it seems to work with a lot of other microbes. But how effective is it in the body versus in it, outside the body in a petri dish? That's the question. Obviously, it looks like for very serious diseases, it's not effective enough. Now, but the thing is, I want to point out that the two can coexist together. You could still do blood electrification, and you could still take conventional meds if you use a blood electrifier that's set at 40 hertz. It appears that all these claims that the diehard Dr. Bob Beck enthusiasts say, which I am one of them, but I want to be far more accurate with this. I don't want to throw something out here that's inaccurate. I want to try to, my attempt is to be accurate. It looks like the diehard fans of Dr. Bob Beck, a lot of them are saying it's a suppressed medical cure. Maybe that's somewhat true because it's kind of a different idea than pharmaceutical medicine, Well, microelectricity and healing with microelectricity is, it's still a kind of like a new concept that, it's not going to be embraced. And probably, I think, in the future, it's going to be the norm, but that's my opinion. But it looks like Dr. Beck actually never did cure anybody of HIV/AIDS. He took people that were PCR positive, which is not actually a true positive test, and some of them, not most of them stayed PCR positive. Some of them were cured, but it looked like all of them were symptom free. But they won't be symptom free if the disease keeps progressing in your immune system. The CD4 cells or T cells go to zero. They will die. So that's why I say if somebody was to undertake this Beck Protocol in lieu of conventional medicine, that's stupid. Don't do that. Don't do that. You might do that as an adjunct to it, but then again, you have to use the device that's with the 40 hertz. You can't use the standard Beck zapper. It's got to be the one with the 40 hertz. Actually, I'm going to say I got several of these devices with the 40 hertz because even if you take aspirin, you're better off. You have to watch when you take the aspirin if you're using a device with the 4 hertz because it can absorb into the body a little faster. Actually, it's my opinion, considering that 70% or more of Americans are on pharmaceutical medications. That's my statistics anyway. I don't know if they're accurate, but a lot of people are on pharmaceutical medications. Probably like anybody that makes these Beck zappers or blood electrification devices in the USA probably should make them only at the 40 hertz setting only. Even though it's not exactly to Dr. Beck's parameters, it would probably just be fail-safe, can do no harm, nobody's going to have a problem in any possible way. That's the way I look at that. That's my personal opinion. But the two can coexist together. That's my point. So the truth is, it lies between, Beck is not a fraud. Beck is not a quack. The guy was very intelligent. Actually, this device can be very useful for a number of things. It is. I think it's very useful for a number of things. Is it the big all cure-all that some people say? No, it's not. Now, I put out a recent video whereby, actually, I'll show it on here. If you had the device in the middle and you had two wires, and this was the device. Say, for instance, this was the device, the electro device, the microelectricity device that Beck used. You can actually use it like this, where this wire, you have one wire going out and one wire going out the other way, just like I have on here. And you can split those wires into using them on both ankles and then both wrists. So therefore, the electricity flows from the wrist to the ankles and goes through the whole body. I don't know if that's an improvement. To tell you the truth, I've been experimenting with that, but I don't know. I just got really good energy levels, and if somebody was actually use this blood electrification device and say they had no access to any kind of conventional medicine, and they're putting all their hopes in on this. First off, I'm going to say I don't think it works for something serious enough. It helps with symptoms. That's what it looks like. It looks like it helps with energy, helps with smaller stuff. It helps with this. It seems to help with this chronic fatigue syndrome. People seem to feel better. Not all of them. A lot of them do. That's what it seems to be. But somebody was going to try to really conquer something because, I don't know, this is a new idea. You know, I was talking to Mike about this because actually I think this is a cool idea, this microelectricity. I think it's the wave of the future for healing. I think, 100 years from now, if we're all still alive, because we're using microelectrical devices, that we're going to look back at pharmaceutical meds and look at it like, boy, that stuff was antiquated. We could just zap and use a magnetic pulsar and do different things and knock out any microbe we need to anywhere in the body. Right now, this is actually like pretty primitive. I wish the medical community would really embrace this a lot more. And I'll give you a little more examples that in the veterinary world, the ones that heal pets, that, fix dogs, cats, and horses and everything. There's, the other part of the Beck Protocol, which is the magnetic pulsar. They'll use that on dogs and cats and horses. They use the magnetic pulsar on horses for like injuries. Now the magnetic pulsar is something different from this, but it's another part of the Beck Protocol. But it's been known even with humans to be pretty damn good with pain management. Like if you have arthritis or you have, it's not 100% effective, but there's been a lot of good feedback about it. But my main point on this video is that I want to actually put out the absolute truth about what I think is the absolute truth. Because I dug in, and I'm going to provide the link to where this PDF document is. It tells a lot about Beck, he's pretty flamboyant. He had some pretty cool looking ladies and stuff like that. And, he was very, very intelligent and, had a little bit of an ego with it, but he was a good guy. That's what I think. I think he was a really good guy, man. Really good. And, there may be a way to actually make his devices even more effective. I don't know. I just threw this out here where you have the device in the middle. And I'll point to a link about how to do that. You have the device in the middle. I don't know. I mean, it's an experiment. I'm looking at it that way. And it's not even my idea. It was Mike who sells these down in Ecuador. Actually, he's an American, a Texan, and former Texan. But he's in a place in Ecuador where they kind of do the alternative medicine a lot, So, anyway, if you put the device here, and you have like one wire goes out, the standard has one wire, and the two wires go out, put a Y connection and use the one Y connection from the one wire for both ankles and the other Y connection for both wrists. So then it flows from the wrist down to the ankles and goes through the whole body. Will that be more effective? I don't know. Like I said, I wish conventional doctors with all their money, resources, and everything would embrace this idea more. Like there's one famous doctor out there from the 70s that embraced this doctor. I'll mention it right now. It's Dr. Robert Becker. Not to be confused with Bob Beck Phd. This is Dr. Robert Becker MD. And of course we had Royal Rife with the Rife microscope and the Rife machine, that supposedly cured cancer with frequencies, but nobody knew. Anyway, just to conclude, Beck is neither a fraud nor a quack, nor did he come up with something that the conventional medicine has, not figured out. So it's useful. So the two can coexist together. Blood electrification, the Beck Protocol, set at 40 hertz, and pharmaceutical meds and conventional medicine. They can all coexist together and help you on your journey to great healing.